Hey, everybody. Hi, I hope you're doing well. I'm doing pretty well. I have my boy here with me. My name is Rebecca. I'm a parenting and relationship coach, and this is my group. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. Please put any questions that you have in the comments, and I will get to them as soon as I see them. If I can't get to them on the live, I will respond in the comments or send you a private message if that's what you ask for. So tonight we're going to talk about narrating. Let me look at my notes because Christina said we were talking about something else too. We are talking about narrating and modeling. That's right. Okay, my brain couldn't remember for a second. So we're talking about narrating and modeling. And these are amazing skills that really help when you are navigating all of your relationships. Because often what happens is that people make up stories in their head about what's going on. And this starts out very young. So our brains are incredible pattern finders. And our brains are trying to make associations so that we can make sense of the world around us. And this starts from a very young age. And so oftentimes kids are making sense of the world around them, and parents are not necessarily helping them create that narrative. So they are making sense without all of the information. So we want to help them along and make sure that they understand how to make sense of their experiences. For example, if you're having a really difficult day and you snap at your child, they don't have the awareness to say, well, maybe mom's stressed, or maybe mom's worried about that email that she should have sent, or maybe mom is managing all of these things. They know mom snapped at me. And so a young brain tends to be very self-centered. And so they're going to make that story make sense about them. And so they might say, I am bad, or mom doesn't like me, or I am unlovable. Those sort of things can be the way that they make sense of that experience, especially if it's happening over and over and over again. Or, let's say your kids are always asking you to play games, but in the middle of making dinner, and you are continuously saying, no, I don't have time. No, I don't have time. No, I'm in the middle of something. No, I'm in the middle of something. They might walk away thinking, oh, dad doesn't like playing with me. And this might sound fairly benign, but when it happens over the course of a child's life, they can start to internalize some of those stories, and it can really shift the way that they interact with you and the way that they interact with themselves. It can shift their self-esteem. It can shift the way that they show up in the world. And there can be really long-lasting negative effects to a child having some of these incorrect associations about their experiences. So we want to make sure that we're helping them with that piece. So that is one of the ways that narrating is also helpful. But there are so many other ways that narrating can be really helpful in your relationships. One example is, children who aren't picking up on social cues, or children who are kind of in their own world. When you are narrating, you're helping them become present in their experience. You're helping them notice what's going on in the world around them, and you kind of bring their awareness back. You basically invite them to expand their awareness. When you do this over time, they start to develop a deeper understanding of the world around them, and that's really powerful, especially if you have a child who maybe misses social cues in other relationships or that sort of thing. Another way that narrating is, I don't know why this is happening. I can feel my cheeks getting red the last couple of weeks. Like something has been very off in my videos, and I don't know why. So I feel like I'm tripping on my words, and I never do that in live. So this is so funny for me. So anyway, another reason why narrating can be really helpful is that it offers you respite from dealing with that situation on your own. So one of the things that happens as you're narrating your experience to your kids or to your partner, you are allowing them into your world a little bit. And you're also, so it fosters more connection because you're sharing your experience with others, but it also gives your body the message that help is on the way. When you start narrating that experience and you start allowing other people into that experience, your body hears that you're narrating. Your body hears that. And so it gives you the sense that something else, that it's not always going to be like this, and that help is on the way, especially when you can request help while narrating. So you might say something like, let's say you're driving and the kids are fighting in the car and you're trying to get somewhere on time. You can start by narrating and then offer a request at the end, and you're welcoming that person to help you in that moment rather than demanding change. So oftentimes parents will demand for change instead of making requests. So it might be, quiet, stop the fighting. Oh my gosh, you guys are driving me crazy, or all sorts of things that people might say to try and share that experience and request help, but really they're making a demand. So if instead the parent narrates and then asks and requests for help, it's going to shift the way that unfolds. So if instead you say, part of my brain is thinking about driving this car safely. Part of my brain is thinking about you fighting with your sister and her crying right now. Part of my brain is trying to get us there on time. It would really help if you would give the toy back to your sister and sit quietly so I can get us there safely. Or it would really help my body to calm down if you could read to your brother while I focus on getting us to the birthday party or wherever it is you're going. So you give yourself the message that help is on the way, and you also request from others to help you in that moment. And when you do that, when you can say, hey, my body is feeling scared right now, or my body is feeling nervous right now, or my body's feeling sad right now, could you help me, or could you love me by blank? Children and partners are much more likely to respond to that positively. The one word that I would tend to avoid, especially for younger kids, is mom's stressed right now or dad's stressed right now, because kids really don't have a frame of reference for stress. So I would swap that out for afraid or sad or frustrated instead of mad. I would choose frustrated instead, or I'm having a hard time, or this is really hard for me right now. Kids tend to respond to those better than they do if somebody's just saying, oh, I'm mad at you. When you share that with the child, they tend to shut down more. So I would use different words, and I would definitely swap out stressed. That is just not something that most kids have a frame of reference for until older. As far as modeling, this goes hand in hand with narrating, because what we're doing is we're showing them that when we need help, we talk about what's going on, and then we request help from people that we care about. We want to model all sorts of things. We want to model all of the different tools that we talk about in this group, reflective listening. We want to model compassionate listening. We want to model speaking to each other with kindness, even when the speaker's upset. We want to model all of the skills that we talk about. But specifically with narrating, we're modeling how we talk about something, how we engage with others when we're upset, how we engage with others when we need help, or how we engage with someone when we want to bring their attention to what's going on. So like, let's say for example, you're setting the table and everybody's helping except for this one child. You can bring attention to that in a way that brings shame by saying something like, why are you always sitting there when everybody else is doing something, which, maybe is something that your parents might have said to you. And that probably feels really frustrating if you're at the point where you're going to say something like that. But it's going to lead to shame in the child and that feeling of I'm bad, which we want to avoid. So if instead you say something like, I noticed so-and-so is putting silverware on the table, and dad is stirring the soup, and I am putting out the napkins. What do you notice, so-and-so? What do you notice about what's happening right now? And for kids who don't have a lot of awareness, they might say something like, I don't know, or all the things you just said. And it's really easy for a parent to be upset at a response like that, but remember your curiosity and come back to the narrating. Okay, well, let's look at us. There's 4 of us here and 3 of us are helping get ready for dinner. And what are you doing right now? That's right, you're on a video game. And it's not bad to play video games, but when we're all together, we want to all be helping. We're all going to be eating dinner and we're all helping. So take a look around. Notice what's something that you could do to help us get ready for dinner. And so we want to get used to modeling for them how to request help when we're frustrated, how to bring somebody's awareness to a negative pattern they have, or something that they're doing that's causing some sort of harm, without adding shame. Shame doesn't help us. And so many of the ways that our parents brought attention to our behaviors was directly through shame. And so don't be surprised if some of these examples are the things that you would reach for immediately. If the examples I give about using curiosity or narrating just wouldn't make sense to you or sound strange even to think about saying. A lot of the things that we're going to talk about in this group are going to sound really foreign and maybe even not genuine for you when you first try them out. But a lot of that is because we were parented with a lot of shame. We were parented with a lot of anger. We were parented with a lot of fear and use of force. So give yourself a break if you're trying on some of these skills and it feels really awkward or it feels really clunky at first. Over time, as you start practicing and you start getting better, it's going to feel better to bring somebody's awareness without causing the shame. It's going to feel better to narrate than it does to rub somebody's face in their mistakes. And if you're at the very beginning of this process, let me know in the comments, what are you most likely to lose it about with your kids? Have you tried narrating? And if you have tried narrating, how has that gone wrong? Oftentimes I will have families who find me and they will say, oh, I've tried gentle parenting, or, oh, I've tried this and that, but it doesn't usually work. And I always end up in yelling. And that doesn't mean that the skills aren't effective, but maybe the implementation needed some tweaking. So if you have things that you have tried in the past, if you've tried narrating, and if you've tried gentle curiosity, let me know, and let me know where you're getting stuck in those skills. We want to focus on our healing in order to pass on healthy patterns for our kids. There's a saying that hurt people hurt people. And that is true. That is very true, and that is very sad. And if we do not do our own healing work, we will continue to perpetuate the shame, the use of force, the manipulation, the coercion, parenting patterns and relationship patterns that were modeled for us. We will pass those on. The opposite is also true, that healed people heal people, and healing is available to you. So if you want to end some of the generational patterns that you notice you're passing on to your kids just through your behavior, let me know, reach out to me and I can help you, because you do not have to pass on pain. You can pass on healing. Yes, Michelle, it does take a few times and tweaking. And this is true for my clients as well. I'll have clients who show up, after a couple of weeks of trying a certain skill, sometimes after a couple of months of trying a certain skill, and they will say, they'll be telling me what happened, and I'll give them the tweak, and they're like, oh, okay, the same thing. And you trying something and it not working doesn't mean that there's something wrong with a skill. It's just that we are not used to this way of listening to people. We are not used to engaging with people in a respectful way when we're upset. And it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of practice to do something different than your programming was set you up for. So hurt people. And if you're hurting your kids, if you're hurting your partners, if you're and I mean dysfunction, all kinds of dysfunction. We can hurt people in so many ways. If you are passing on patterns that are dysfunctional to people that you care about, that doesn't have to happen. You can pass on different patterns. If you are a client, my recommendation would be that you go into the internal framework section of the curriculum and the inner work section of the curriculum. If you are here in this public group, but you're not yet a client, request some of these related topics. Request the internal framework topic, request the reparenting topics, because there are so many free resources in this group to help you on your journey of healing. And either Christina or I will get them to you. What I would say to you is that you do not have to pass on harmful patterns. The generational trauma can end with you, and we'll do it 1 week at a time. We'll do it 1 week at a time, practicing one skill at a time, sometimes many, many times until you start getting it. So I don't see any questions in the comments. I think I want to mention one more thing about modeling. So the families that we grew up in have a really profound effect on the way that we live in families when we grow up, right? So our families of origin, the patterns that we learn in those families come out as our kids are basically triggering us. And that's when we find ourselves living out some of those patterns and thinking, oh my gosh, I swore I would never turn into my mom, and here I am. Oh, I swore I would never do this like my dad did, and here I am. It's basically part of your hardwiring. And so that modeling is exactly the reason why you're in this group. And so when that's the case, it can be really difficult for you to think of, what you might say in a frustrated moment, or what you might say, or how you might lovingly respond when your frame of reference for responding to a disrespectful comment, or your framework for responding to a frustrating moment are all these dysfunctional patterns. Those are the options that your brain has to pick from. So one of the things that we need to do is basically give your brain a new set of options. And so one of the options here that I'm introducing tonight would be the narrating, right? The other thing is that we want to give your brain a very clear idea of what a loving parent sounds like. So for some people, it's really helpful to imagine somebody who sounds like a loving parent. And I have the greatest honor of some people telling me that they imagine what I might say, and then they try and do that with their kids, and that is an incredible honor. But that might not be the case for you. You might need to imagine somebody else. And sometimes, before I had this person that I would think of, I just thought of a loving person in general. What might a loving person say? What might a loving parent say in this situation? So I didn't have anybody specific in mind. But then once I started I started doing some reparenting work on myself, and I felt this strong connection to watch Mr. Rogers. And so I started watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood as a part of my reparenting and healing my inner child work. And so I watched several shows, for a couple weeks at a time. And I started to sort of imagine, I started to kind of sense what he might say in certain situations. I could see how, like, the pattern of the show, the pattern of the process. And so sometimes now when I'm thinking about what I might need to hear as I'm reparenting myself, or what my kids might need to hear in a situation, I just take a moment and close my eyes and think, if Fred was here, what would he say? How would he show up in this moment? And that really brings me a lot of joy. I like to imagine him as a father figure for me, and a father figure for so many of us in this world. And for some of you, you might not have a loving figure that you can look up to and think, okay, what would my dad do? Or what would my mom do? They might not have been that loving figure for you. So it can be really helpful if you can think of, what does love sound like? What does healthy love sound like? What does true kindness sound like? And try and embody that. Hear what that might sound like, and then offer that to yourself. Hear what that might sound like, and then offer it to your kids. And again, sometimes people feel like they're trying this on and it feels like not genuine at first. But remember that if he truly was your dad, or if this loving figure was your parent or your mom, that would have been the modeling that you had, and you would have been able to offer that very easily. So be gentle with yourself as you're trying to find a loving parent to channel as you are parenting your kids or reparenting yourself. You deserve to be loved gently. Your kids deserve to be loved gently. We deserve healing, and we can be the healed people that heal other people. So I will leave it with that. I'm going to check the comments real quick. You are so welcome, Carrie. Michelle, you're right. It is all about the internal framework. That is paramount. Yep. Heather says, we'll make sure we get you those videos, Carrie. Heather says, I like that idea. It's hard to narrate when I'm someone who could use narration in my own interactions. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so you're going to have some reparenting to do, probably about the topic that you mentioned. And yeah, so think about this for a moment, Heather. Let's say you're having a moment and you're feeling really dysregulated, and imagine yourself to be the child, and somebody like Mr. Rogers or myself or Thich Nhat Hanh or somebody like that who is a very warm figure to you. Imagine for a moment that they're in the room with you, what kind of presence they would bring to that moment. If you had just spilled, let's say you just spilled something, or you made a mess and you're frustrated with yourself and you have this feeling of like self-punishment or shame or whatever it is. Imagine for a moment that loving figure is with you, what they might say to you or what they might do. They might, gently put a hand on your back and say, oh, that's okay. Let's take a breath. And after that, we can clean it up together. They might take a moment to help you center yourself. They might take a moment to look into your eyes and smile at you and let you know that everything would be okay. And then they would help you gently clean up that mess without any shame at all, right? With a connection, even with joy, even. So when you're having that moment of needing to narrate for yourself, try and imagine that loving presence with you. For some people, it might be helpful to think of a spiritual figure or a religious person. Reed, I miss you too. I'll see you soon. So we want to try and channel that person and really try and imagine, what would that person act like if they were here with me right now? What would they say to me? And what would I need to hear from them in order to feel calm? What would I need to hear from them in order to breathe out and release? And then say that to yourself. So you sort of channel it so you can hear that voice, and then you respond in that loving way towards self. And that is incredibly healing. It can be incredibly emotional at first, so be prepared for that. But that's part of the healing as well, letting those emotions flow freely as you speak to yourself with gentleness, as you speak to yourself without shame, but with compassion instead. All right, I think that's where I'm going to leave it. Excuse me. Thank you for joining me tonight. I will see you next week at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And goodbye. See you soon.